Hi, it's Jackie in Dunnock Studio, and it's nearly the new year, and I'm sporting some beautiful handmade presents that I've been given. This will keep me nice and warm. Isn't it gorgeous? And also these very festive colours, just my cup of tea. It's quite cold today because it's foggy and not really above about 2 degrees, so very cold in Norfolk today. And so I thought we'd follow the scene through with a painting of heather in snow, and I hope you enjoy it. So get yourself settled in and get your paints, and I'll put all the details of what I've used into the description below. If you would like to follow me, please feel free, and any comments are very welcome. If you'd like me to make a video in the future, please do say which video you'd like, and I'll do my very best to do that for you. So without any further ado, let's get on with the painting. So today we have a nice cold snowy scene. We haven't got any snow here at the moment at Dunnock Studio. We have got very cold fog, which isn't anything like as fun. So this picture is off of Pixabay. Do you like my fingerless gloves? Lovely present I had this year. Because this is a cold scene, I might get cold hands, so I thought I'd put my mittens on. And so this is Pixabay, pixabay.com. They provide free to use images, and you can donate to the person who supplied them if you wish. I'll put a link to the person who supplied this one. If you've got your own photographs, so much the better, because nobody else will be able to access that same photo unless you share it. So this is a Pixabay photograph of some heather in snow, and I wanted to show it to you because it's really quite a good way of showing that generally in watercolour our highlight is the lightest area, whereas this picture is the reverse. The lightest area is really this dark value here, and the focal point is that, not the light area. The light area is framing the dark area, which you've got in the middle there. Obviously there's light areas with the flowers, etc., but they're not as light as the snow. So it sort of reverses that. So it's quite an interesting one to do. You can do snow scenes where the focal point is actually something dark rather than something light. So good exercise. This is quite a big dark area. You could go a lot smaller. All sorts of ways you could play with that. This is a good value tonal picture. So when I talk about tones and values, value is how you get a contrast in your painting. So you can see that this central part of this picture is almost there, not quite. Most of it's this value here. And then all the snow areas, they're not white, and this is another lesson. You don't generally need to have white snow, although you can do. You sort of try and squint and see where that value of this hits. It's sort of here, isn't it? This snow here. And obviously there's different values in different areas of the painting. So a value finder is a really good way of helping you to isolate those colours, as clearly that value there, that lightness or darkness, is nowhere near this, but it is sort of there. So that's a good way to get contrast. So in this instance we're having a value that's sort of here going right across to over this one, so you get a nice range of value there. So value finder, good one to buy if you haven't got one. So this picture is nice simple colours. Essentially, if you break this down in complementary colours, let's have a little look. We've got a a red violet here, which is this pinky colour. As you can see, it's just a more watered down version of this, and the opposite of that is the yellowy green. So we have got some hints of yellowy green in here, but I'm going slightly more towards the bluier green because it's cooler. This is bluier green because there's more blue in this than there is yellow. But we can use this split complementary. So if I turn this wheel over and point my complementary line to the red violet, let's turn it that way around for you. There's the red violet, then the direct complementary is yellow green, and the split complementary is yellows and greens over to each side. So we can play with that, and you can go to a triad, which is yellow, orange and blue green. So you can use your wheel to decide which colours you want to use. You don't have to match this exactly, but we have got a red violet to find. So I've done a little bit of swatching to try and find the right colours for this painting, and I've raided all my different paints and had a good play with them. Now my favourite pink for this, I think works, is actually Ultramarine Pink, and that's by Dayler Rowney. So it's not an expensive one. If you haven't got it, don't worry. The next one down is a Quin Violet, and that's a Daniel Smith, which is a lot more expensive, but has some nice patterns. Although the Ultramarine Pink for me is really beautiful, the way it's split there. And on here there's also a Jackmans Art Materials Petal Shadow here. Ignore that bit, it's where my pen hit the paint. And this is one of my favourite colours. It splits into blue and pink, which could work really well in this picture. Then I've had a play with blues. Now I'm seeing that again. I'm quite liking this blue to try and pull this colour across. This is an iridescent blue, and that doesn't really have much colour but may work over the top of another. Indigo is quite nice, but indigo is quite cool, and this is more on the violet side. So we've got lunar blue here, cerulean blue, which is sort of nice but greeny. So I'm going to this one, which is something I've had for many years, Schminke Delft blue. And as you can see by the state of my tube, it is an old tube. I hope it's still available. It's Delft blue, and I'll put links for all of these in the description. So I'm probably going to go with that one, pinks. And then we've got some greens. We've got green apatite genuine, which is another Daniel Smith colour, which is beautiful because, as you can see, it's splitting into some amazing earthy greens there. And then just below it I've added some indigo, which I already had out from here, and it's run back up into that paint. So it's actually taken away some of this beautiful sort of two-tone colour going on there, but it's given me a darker green. So let's have a play with these. So I'm going to just work on this part here where this is the edge of the snow, as in here, but I've made it a different shape, and I'm going to try and bring some of that light back there. So I've got an angle shader brush here, clean water, squeeze it out, run along that edge to work some of that paint back off again. This is a over and over technique. You just keep going, you run that brush in, squeeze it, clean it, keep it clean as you go, and you might or might not be able to lift off the colours you've put on. It's always worth a try. If you find that you're having to rub really hard at it, chances are it's not going to shift, and all you're going to do is pull the paper surface off. So just see how you go. I can just see that I've got slightly paler area there now, which is quite hard to see on the screen, but that's just made it slightly lighter in that area, and I'll probably stop there because I'm not going to get much more off than that. So I've got a pale edge here. I've also got a wobbly spray bottle. Let's put him away. So this is all dry apart from this damp area here. So all of these colours are quite pale and merged together. And now with my sketching of where the flowers are, I'm going to stop looking so much at this and start building a picture up out of my imagination. So we'll see how that goes. You can also lift out a similar technique with any nylon stiff brush. This is Matthew Palmer lift out brush, but it doesn't have to have a brand on it. You might even want to use a masking fluid brush, might do the same thing. The idea being that the bristles are quite firm, and so somewhere in your picture you might want to lift out areas where there might be a flower bud. Let's try a smaller brush. This is a really tiny lift out brush. And so you just work away at one area. There we go. Don't know if you can see that. Let's see if I can go in a little bit closer for you. So this background colour here is very pale anyway, so you're not going to see a huge amount of difference, but it's a subtle change that does actually make a nice overall effect. Don't do all of them, you just want some of them. So some of them are going to be pulled out, lifted out, and then some of them we're going to paint back in. So you get the idea of that. So I'm going to continue to work my way around, sometimes using a slightly bigger brush, sometimes using a smaller brush, clean squeezed out brush, lift off with a towel. There we go, you can see the difference on that one quite a lot more than perhaps on the paler areas. It will show up more on the blue, but you are leaving a bit of colour behind. You're not leaving completely white paper, so you get this subtle layered effect of different flowers having different shadows and a bit of depth really to them. So there we go. I shall work my way around doing that. So I'm adding pinks, all the different pinks I've picked up, mostly the Ultramarine pink, but also with some of the Jackmans Petal Shadow. and I'm popping some of these colours directly on and letting them mix, trying to keep a little bit of variety in the pinks. If you put something on and it doesn't work or it's too thick, just lightly damp it off with your cloth. Go back in and drop some in again. Try and get a variety of marks. You could go for hours like this, you really could. I could have masked these flowers off to keep these pinks a little bit cleaner, but I didn't. I just wanted to do a nice fresh snowy scene, so I'm trying not to overthink this. These are a little bit heavy, so just dabbing them off. So there's our flowers. So, and in this area now I need to add some darks. Go back to the original image just for reference. It's quite dark in there, isn't it? And it isn't dark at the moment. There's absolutely no dark there. So I now need to go in and start to add that in. So you can have a mixture of, well, one nice colour actually, which I don't have a tube of, but I picked up at a painting workshop, is Sepia. But you could have raw umber, any sort of earthy brown really. Mix up your own brown if you can, it's good practice. Maybe a drop of blue into it. So this is quite dark, so I would put it where the darkest part of this area might be. So let's just go for along that ridge where that snow is. Still not really dark enough, so let's pick up some indigo here. There we go, that's darker. And then I'm going to dance that around on here, bearing in mind that this edge here is my snow and this is my shadow. So I'm not covering all that colour up underneath, but this is quite a rich dark. I'm going to continue to fill this area in. Try not to lose all this beautiful colour and form and different shapes I've got going on here. And maybe add in a little bit more green as we go up out of this dark area here. So there's my snow line. There's my tangled mess. Branches, leaves, all sorts of things. So some of these areas could be a little bit more broad. Let's go for it. Tilt the page down so it goes that way. There we go, look at that go. Do love this green apatite. Genuine, it's a beautiful colour. So I'm just negative painting around these flowers here. So some of these flowers aren't pink, but then that's going to make them look more interesting, more natural. So my snow line is coming up here. This snow line is quite blurred in the photograph, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. So the snow line goes right over here. So my darks need to keep dancing across the page here. Drop some in as it's drying. That's my green, and mix with the indigo. Let's come across this line again here. So my flowers hopped over that snow line there. Let's see if we can negative paint around the flower as if the snow is popping up over there. There we go. Negative paint these flowers. This is where you get this lovely effect of the colour that you left behind when you lift it out. So that's now the top of the snow coming down there. So as I go up this way, I'm going to add more of the blue, the Delft blue that we had. Which I just need to pick up a little bit more strength in that colour. There we go. Take that route out to there. Bring it around those flowers there and there. A bit more sepia in here. Oops, slightly lost that flower, that's okay. There we go. See how much darker this is now. It's getting towards that value, isn't it? Number, wherever the number was we had that was probably a value 2 we were after. So it's the second one down from black. So yeah, we've gone even a bit darker than that, but don't forget this will dry paler. So now that's giving this picture some depth. So I'm going to carry on working on that. Build in a bit more, but as this is now beginning to dry down this area, well, it's not drying, but the damp is wearing off. I wanted to show you some ways of adding some texture. So we've got heather fronds there, haven't we? So you can get an old card, plastic card, and then you can scratch out whilst this is still damp. This card is lost its curvy corner, which helps you to get in with a nice rounded edge. So I'm not getting quite the same effect, but it's still adding some textures and some lines towards, as if there's stems and things going off. Another thing, have you ever wondered what to do with the cheap canvas spaces that are supposed to tension up your canvas, which generally don't if your canvas is cheap? Well, here's another way of using those, is you can use these to scratch in. So let's see if we can drag in that along, see if that makes any. There we go, not too bad. It's a little bit of a puddle here, so I need to get that to move away really, but let's use it, let's drag it out. Scratch, scratch. It's just ideas of scratchy bits, and sometimes if you get the angle right you can pull off. There we go, so you get a paler area. So imagine that's coming off this twiggy bit of that heather. So have a play with some random bits that you've got sitting around. Things like people who do nails have things like this. They can work quite well too. So if you're holding the broad end and you've got a colour underneath, you're dragging out that colour. So don't overdo it, but do you know what? Overdo it if you want to, because that's half the fun of this. So it's just giving it some texture. So I'm going to keep going with that. So this is dry now. Got some greens and some blues and some sepia in here, and letting some of the background show through. Tried to paint negatively around the flowers and then soften this top edge. So the snow is in front, which is the hard edge, but we don't want hard edges at the back. So now it's time to pop some greens and do some structure to the leaves, etc. If I can find my little rigger brush, which is always hiding. There it is. It's got a little narrow brush, liner brush, whatever you want. Pick up, try and mix the green and the sepia and the blue. If you want to use your picture reference for the way that the leaves run, so for instance if I was going towards here, I might have it something like that. It's going off. Don't forget the leaves will come out towards you occasionally, as well as going off at the back, so do some short ones, and then you just build up those stems. Now I'm going to put that away because otherwise I'll just copy it, and let's go and do one up here without. So imagine that's a stem. If you wanted to, you could pick up a little bit of the brown. The brown then becomes your stem. which is rising out of all of this darkness here. So let's pop them down as if they're coming out of here. And it's quite good to have, not just have two, so let's have that one. Go back to the green, drop that in, go right up there. So this is a bit brown, so I'm going to pick up my green now. And let's have some spiky, well, they're not really spiky, they're quite soft heather. Don't really have heather in Norfolk as it's too chalky. So if you live on acidic or neutral soil, on the moors maybe, or on mountains, you will have this. We really don't. But they're beautiful when they're in flower. So you can't beat a lovely bit of heather. So I'm just letting that go quite random. Now I'm going to work my way around adding some details here and there in that form, but I'm not going to go overdo it. So I've added quite a lot of leaf detail using the rigger brush and just literally dancing it around. It's a good way for you to practice using these brushes and just letting them go for a walk. Don't try and paint every leaf as you see it on this picture. Pictures are useful so we can see the flowers have got little dark, tiny little dark spots on the end, so we can try and emulate that. I'm going to use a stiff nylon brush for this. Pick up some, we had this Delft blue earlier. Let's see if that will be dark enough. Not sure it will be. Might actually use some of the indigo actually. So I'm not going to overdo this. The ones in this background here, we don't really need to have such an emphasis on them. Let's just, whoops, way too much on my brush there. So that brush is actually going to be too big. So let's go back to our rigger brush and see how that works. It's quite a greeny blue, I'm not sure. Might need to get some more Delft blue. Let's have a little go. So just some little, no, it's not working. So I'm going to get some Delft blue completely neat out the tube, and it's an old tube, so it's going to need a little bit of work to wake it up. I need to try and pick up fairly thick paint from that. So I'm now going to try and add on some droplets, no, some little tiny little marks on the end of these flowers, just in a few places. If I overdo this, it will take away from the fact that it's quite spontaneous and there's not too much fiddling detail on this. Still not quite the right blue, is it? But these are tiny, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to mix some of that sepia that we had earlier into that Delft blue. So a very red, brown and a blue should give me a much better dark than I had before. That's slightly better. But just a hint of it. Just come back out from there. So I carry on with that. Don't need many of these. Just a suggestion that some of these flowers have got a dark point on them. Your brain, when you're looking at them, will work the rest out. There is one just here that's popping over that snow, so I will put that in. Some here. We're probably almost there already. Maybe just some in this area here. I'm going to come back to these flowers in a minute. So, just giving a little bit of a slight emphasis on them edges of these flowers. I've got something just that is naturally there. Just 2 or 3 over here. That's probably done. In fact, might have already overdone that. Lift some off if you think you have. Just a gentle lift off will do it. There we go. Take them back again. Look a bit regimented. Right. Okay. So that's now drying again. And what I have noticed is that my banks of snow are looking great, but they are not differentiated between each area. Now again, I'm not going to copy that exactly, but I'd quite like this area here to be slightly separated from this area here. So I'm now going to paint in reverse, and wish me luck, because doing this on top of an almost finished painting. So I'm going to pick up my Delft blue, but I do not want this to be thick paint at all. So I just need to get enough colour just to run along here. It's probably not even enough there. And then round these flowers, like so. So that's given me a ridge. Not a very interesting shape, but that'll do. Wash the brush and then drag that out, soften that edge. Let's take him out and tilt it that way. There you go. Smooth that, take that edge away, damp that paper, off it goes. Take it with you, please, so I don't have a hard edge. That's better, isn't it? Now it's brought this as if there's a definite lump or rill in snow. So let's do something similar this side. So we could have the shadow coming up here. As there's already a part there, I think I will go for there. So I'm just going to pop that in as if this is the front of it. Like so. Let's just pop up the, make sure I don't get too much paint on here, but I want this one to stand out a little bit. So there's the shadow. There we go, that's better. It's quite dark in here anyway, isn't it? So then rinse the brush, squeeze it out, bring that damp brush along the edge, encourage that paint to move away from that edge, softening it as it goes. Off you go, paint. I've got slight dark edge here where it has already dried, but I actually don't mind that so much. So it's almost like different areas of the snow. Let's see if we can stop it happening on this side. Take it out. There we go. That's good. Yep, take that down there. So we now seem to have like a little snowbank here. So we could do the same thing again. We could bring this area forward by running a shadow along here. So I'm going to add a little bit more paint to that water. And then run that along. Ooh, just have to think which way around you're doing it. Like so. Rinse the brush, keep the board that way, soften that edge. Don't go over that white area there. That's our edge here. Don't want to lose that edge. Like so. Soften, soften. There we go. It's going to have a slight edge here, but that's okay. Nearly got it. It's not the best designed snowbank in the world, but you get the idea. It's beginning to look as if there's different layers of snow. Probably won't do any more with the front here because I've got some nice colours reflecting here. So it looks like it's sitting in amongst the snow, and there's this heather popping out. So we're on the home stretch now. So what would I do now? So I would probably play around with some gouache or gouache, or I use white, and I've added some of the ultramarine pink to it. And why have I done that? Because, well, because this is my painting and I want to, and if it's your painting and you want to, this is something you could do. You can buy gouache paints that are already coloured, but you don't need to do that because you can literally buy white gouache and add any of your colours to it to make your own coloured opaque watercolour. So that's gouache is just an opaque watercolour. Purists will tell you you shouldn't use it. You do whatever you like, it's your painting. So all I'm going to do with this is add some areas where these flowers need a highlight. So I'm not overdoing this, but having this opaque paint means you can really start to bring those forward. Do you get the idea? So if you think you can think about it logically, try and add this where you think the light would hit the flowers. Don't worry if that doesn't make sense. Just pop it on the flower areas, but whatever you do, don't cover up the whole of your flower underneath. This is the one we lifted out earlier, so I don't really want to go over him, but I might add some lights on the ones just above. So it can give you highlights, it can give you little shiny areas, it can also get rid of some of those darker bits that you put on earlier if you over egg them a little bit. Again, this is adding texture, it's a little bit of extra that's quite hard to get if you haven't got the opaque paint. So gouache with ultramarine pink, and really liking this colour. Had this for ages, this paint tube, and not knowing what to do with it, and seems to be a very, very good colour for this heather. So what could we do to finish off? Well, we could do some splatter, and everybody likes a bit of splatter. I want splatter all over my snow that I've spent a long time making look like snow, so I'm going to try and protect it to some degree. Doesn't matter, you could have splatter on your snow if you like. I'm just feeling like I don't feel like I need much splatter down there, probably not up there either. Let's have a little go. What's the worst that could happen? Well, okay, we won't answer that. Right, so toothbrush is going to give me a fine splatter. Start off with some of my green. You need this to be fairly runny, but not so runny that you can't see the colour. And I have got some yellow around here somewhere as well. Let's pick a little bit of that up. So toothbrushes give you a nice fine spatter, like so. Don't want much, but this is more about texture again. There we go, that's quite nice. Do I want big splatters? Let's try splattering with the gouache. Oh no, so that doesn't work because it is not runny enough. But the thing with gouache is if you make it too runny, it will no longer be opaque. So I've literally added a couple of drops of water to that. Let's see what happens now. Yep, there we go. Just enough for it to drop off that brush. Now, if you want bigger drops than that, you need a bigger brush. And bigger blobs. So you can sometimes get it to go that way. but I don't have much luck with that. I think that needs to be a lot runnier for that to work. So let's just try this. There we go, big blob. Just add in some texture in those areas which haven't really got any suggestion of flowers. Right, let's just have a little look about up here. Most of these you're not actually going to see, but honestly, one, not only will you have fun, but two, they give your painting depth, because you're trying to make a 2D flat piece of paper look like a lovely nature scene in winter in the snow. So it's quite an art, really, isn't it? And all of you who are learning to paint are brilliant, because you're all doing this absolutely fabulously. Now, that I am more than happy with. Do I need to do any more to it? I could add snow spatters here, which would be white gouache. I could add pink splatters. I could do whatever I like. But what I wanted to achieve today was to capture some heather growing through the snow. And I'm very pleased with that. I think I've managed to capture it pretty well there. So if we just have a little zoom in, you can have a look at the detail, the rigger work with a brush that's just dancing around the page, splattering with opaque pink gouache and watercolour mixed together. Not really any detail in those flowers. It's all texture here that we layered up and scratched out with earlier. Then we added a shadow line along that snow on that side. And we followed the photograph to get the feel of what heather leaves maybe look like. And another shadow on that side, trying to keep it soft as it dissolves away. There's some splatter, some green splatter. Just give an impression of plants, of foliage. And generally when you find things growing in the snow is quite often quite dirty and speckly around them anyway, maybe because some creatures have walked through, see if there's any food for them, or just because the plant's shedding something. So there, I hope you enjoyed that. So we'll have a look back at our value finder. So we're trying to create a picture that had a good contrast between snow, which in this case none of this is white apart from this little edge here. I tried to trap the light of the paper here. It's quite hard to keep it, so a little bit gouache white on its own there would also help to bring that back if you can't manage it. It's good to add that line in. In fact, we could run that around here and it would just bring that white back here. However, the colours that have gently spread through that snow area are really nice because the plant would reflect on the snow. So have we got a bright white on this painting? Maybe not. Have we got value 9, which is the next one? If you squint your eyes and look through that little hole there, yeah, it's pretty much there. Some of it is over this one, value 8. Get the idea? So we've got some lights. These are our lights. This is the lightest one on this value finder, white, pure white is paper. But instead of leaving all that white as paper, we've made some colour, and hopefully it still reads as snow to you. But at the same time, we've got a lovely, lovely dark area. In fact, we have almost gone to fully black there, but it's more sitting in the value number 2. You can squint where that little gap is. That value is the same as this grey. It's a good way to, if you really can't see it like that, take a photo of your painting, turn it into black and white and see if you've got contrast between light and dark. That's all you need. And this painting is the opposite to having the lightest part of your painting the focal point, as in, say, a little slither of snow coming through a gateway. This time you've got the darkest part of your painting is your focal point, and the white or light is framing it. So it's a good exercise. Have a think about how you could do other paintings in watercolour where the focal area is dark, not light. And let me know how you get on in the comments. I'd be really interested to hear what you think. And if you have a go at this, you can get exactly the same reference photo I had off of Pixabay, or find a different one and enjoy. So I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. It was a really, really interesting painting, completely reversing the usual assumption is that the focal point in a watercolour is the lightest area, whereas in this area in general is dark compared with the rest of it. So the white of that picture is framing the dark centre. So it's quite interesting, isn't it? We also had a look at values and how to create contrast in your paintings using quite a good dark as against quite a nice light. But the dark does not have to be black and the light does not have to be white. You can use the colours that you love so much. So although there's lots of colours I've used here that you may wish to use, please don't go buy anything extremely expensive or new because you haven't got what I had. Please use what you have got, and basically a pink. This particular pink is towards the violet side, so you just need a bluey pink, just a pink with a hint of blue in it, and any greens or earth colours will do the job perfectly well. So don't get hung up on the details, just use what you've got, use your brushes and have some fun. Who knows, it might be snowing this time next week, so it might be a very apt picture to paint. Anyway, I wish you all a very happy new year. I hope to see some of you next year as well, and I do thank all of you for watching. Really, really appreciate your support, and happy painting into 2025. Oh my goodness. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.